Greetings, Warlords. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the skirmish miniatures game from Studio Tomahawk, joined by the Adepticon Age of Magic champion, a familiar face. Monty, how are you, buddy?
I am so good.
Cheers.
Yes.
All right.
Finally.
Bringing it home for Team Saga Thursday.
Right?
Oh, we are here live at Adepticon. This is the... I'm recording it live. This will be posted whenever, months later, when it makes its way out. So we're recording the day of the event. It's Friday, right?
It is Friday, day 2.
We are having a blast here. You've probably already seen some other coverage we've done. But we're going to talk about the Age of Magic event and just a short little video about your travails to the top. And so for Age of Magic this year, it was 8 points. The legendary war bands in the back were allowed. Okay, so that was a little bit unusual. Mixing things up.
Hard to prepare for that. Good test.
We saw a few of those. A few giant monster war bands, 2 of those at least, and then a few other ones, which we'll actually detail here. So, Monty, what warband did you take?
I brought the Otherworld, and that was a hard choice because I have 2. I have better success with Great Kingdoms, but I looked at the scenarios, and I have just a bleep ton of Otherworld painted, so I'm able to do Flying Warriors, Foot Warriors with heavy weapons, 2 kinds of creatures, 3 kinds of Warlords. I felt like the variety might help.
Okay. So... did you take advantage of that variety during the day? Or did you stick to this and tried and true? What was your kind of just preferred list, I guess?
Right. So since my build had no Hearthguard in it, and I also find the Otherworld just desperately need the Wheel Bay. I don't like this. It's not maybe my ideal. I want to run a Warlord on a Beast.
Yeah.
But I just kept doing the Warlord, a basic one so that he could close ranks when I get punched. I have no Hearthguard, so I kind of need to be able to close ranks to survive. And I almost swapped him out in my last game, but I'm like, you look in the box, you're like, nope, we're going to stay with tried and true. Basic Warlord.
Okay, basic Warlord, no Hearthguard.
No Hearthguard.
How many points are warriors?
40 warrior figures, so 5 points.
5 points of warriors. I think there's some creatures in there.
There were a point of creatures, which I can, with the point rule, go to 1.5, but I never did that.
Okay. And what else? Did you have a monster in there?
I had a monster. He could be a Scourge. I used that in the middle game, but mostly I wanted the durability of the Behemoth.
The Behemoth.
So the Behemoth in 2 of the 3.
And rounding out that point, a Sorcerer,
yes,
if I'm
every
not
time.
mistaken.
Right? Sorcerer. With wings.
With wings. What spells did you favor, my friend?
So he did Breath, he did Eruption, and he did, oh my gosh, the one where you roll and put a fatigue and take your fatigue off. Oh, yeah. Because I had a
Soul
combo.
Drain or something like that, yeah.
I had a combo with the Flight to get him out in the middle, up in the enemy's face, try Breath, and then when I pull back and I have a fatigue, then try to trade, get that fatigue off and put one. And so with the wings, go forward, come back. It works as long as you don't bomb out if on a high, a risky spell, the highest level, and get blown up. So.
All right. Were there any explosions this weekend, Monty?
No, but he did forget his breath spell almost twice in the last game, which was crucial. If I didn't have breath, I would have lost my last game.
Cool. Well, we'll get there. So starting out, I think you were playing against Brendan.
Yes.
Is that right? It's a little hazy.
Right. I remember he had Under Earth.
Okay.
And it was very nice. Now it's coming back to me. It's been a long day. He had a Skaven build with Doom Wheel and the Lieutenant who shoots.
Nice. So was he using the kind of the legendary version? There's like a vermin build.
I think he was.
So if you have Levy with guns,
yes,
that means you're using the legendary. Okay. And there's some restrictions to offset it, but Levy with guns, we know that's good.
He also had some rule where when things die, and I'm foggy on it, things die and it goes, in this build, they don't care. So I'd kill a thing, and I'm like, so fatigue bomb, right? He goes, nope, no fatigue bomb.
Nice. So, I think that's
awesome.
A very good build of the Under Earth. Could be even better than the actual Under Earth.
Right? It's true.
But
it's true.
Because it doesn't do anything too different like we see with some of the legendaries. Kind of mixes the options up. So Do you remember the scenario? I played in the event
yes.
too, but I can't even remember
So it's your version of kind of like Battle Around the Campfire.
Oh, yeah, that is how we started.
Yeah, so we're like pretty close to right up on top of each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so how did you deploy for this? I mean, because Otherworld, you're mobile, so like maybe that hurts you if they're already on top of you. Your mobility is already.
So I got a little lucky in his back line, and I put a swamp, and so that was actually critical because his army ended up over time kind of split, and it was hard for him to come back. So that helped a lot, and I was getting the drop first, so he was kind of reacting, and at one point I remember he said, you've kind of boxed me in. He got his troops on the board, but he had like second line stuff, and he really didn't have it up on the front line like maybe he wanted. So I felt like coming out of deployment, I somehow had come up with a little bit of an advantage.
That's how you win with Otherworld. You make them react, so it sounds like you're doing the right thing. Anything wild or crazy happen in this game?
So I'd say probably two interesting things. So he had the war machine, the mobile war machine, that's the Doom Wheel. And he put out the first shot, and I'm like, okay, that just can't keep happening. So I threw like a 10-pack of heavy weapon warriors. I give them eruptions, they get winged, they go in, they hammer on the thing, and it just lives. And then it's his turn, he uses the ability where 2 fatigues come off. So then I come back after it a second time, and it just lives. And then he takes the 2 fatigues off. It took 3 attacks to drop the Doom Wheel. I was trapped in quicksand with that unit, and I couldn't believe how hard it was to kill it. And I could feel like the tension's building. My rolls aren't very good. My spells aren't working, and I'm putting all this stuff into big plays, and they're not clicking.
That's right. That's not a good attitude for getting the rolls through mind. You're like, I hope this works.
Here it goes.
I really need this to work to have a shot here. So I try to just have an empty mind.
Just take a
breath. With the flow. So ended up with a win there. Did you get?
I did. It was
tournament
close,
points,
and my dice warmed up just a little bit, enough that like I could kind of claw something back. And it turns out we were so close on points that it was the 3-point bid he gave me to be player 1.
Wow,
I think.
That's a big
bid. That is a big bid. I usually see 1 or 2. He went for 3, felt very strongly, and that was enough to nudge me to get out of a draw. I did not want to draw.
Good close game.
Oh God! But my faith was rattled. It was a little rattled. I'm like, here we go again. My practice games, I only had a couple, and they did not go well, and I was feeling wobbly going into game 2.
Right, just stuck it out. Monty's periscope is searching. Not quite right to surface. Go back. Dive. All right, going into round 2, who were you matched up against?
So I was against Luke, and he had Great Kingdoms, which made me a little nervous because I have so much with wings, and they're going to get shot out of the air. And as we're coming to the table, he goes, my build doesn't have any shooting. And I was like, what?
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
I was like, seriously. I was like, and also, Eric was pulling my leg, but he was like, he's going to be really mean. I'm like, wait, he must mean he has some weird mean trick. So I was really I was a little flummoxed.
Yeah, so what did it end up being? I mean,
so this was really, this was the game with the 3 objectives in the middle, but unlike a lot of the ones, you have to control the objective.
Yeah, they just hang out there.
You can't move them.
You get a point for controlling them, so you're not going to win the game, but if you ignore them, you might lose the game by not accumulating those points. And then I think at the end of the game, there's some tournament points at stake for controlling. So what was your approach here? Go for all 3, shoot for 2?
Right.
Leave the middle?
So I got to be just really honest. This was a scenario that was kind of made for the Otherworld because I am winged, and I also bid, are you ready? 2 points because I was so
that's
desperate.
A big Monty bid. Yeah.
I wanted to do this trick, which I had only I've kind of let Age of Magic get a little cold. And coming back, I was reading the book, and Flight has that ability where when you're outside of 12, you can pick up a flight unit. I can't
maneuver,
remember right? Maneuver through space, and then plop them down anywhere outside of 12, anywhere on the board, and say, that's my maneuver with wings. So I took my flighty units, I took my warriors with wings, I took the Scourge, and on turn 1, I just maneuvered right up on top of all of 3 of the objectives.
Oh,
and also
nice.
that eliminated his ability to come
maneuvering,
up.
yeah.
And one other piece, I went with maximum mean terrain. I put the biggest pieces of terrain on his back line, creating like 2 channels for him to come out from while I hop up there. So a really good start for me.
Awesome. You got the jump, but I don't know. Otherworld isn't known for being durable necessarily, so now you got to hold these objectives. How did you manage that?
Yeah, that's where it started kind of coming undone. I felt really confident. I had my big warriors, and I swapped out my heavy weapons for some guys with shields because I'm like, I just need to control the space. So here's the interesting thing about his build. He put everything except he had a monster on one lane, but the other lane he put everything in a lane, and that's where we were going to fight. And I had kind of got up in his face to kind of stop all his forward movement, like, you know, this is where I'm going to stand. And he came at me in waves, and just he used the ability every turn where you inflict a fatigue on one of your heroes, and you get extra defensive stuff, inflict a fatigue, and get extra offensive. And those two bundled advantages with multi-activations, it just like exponentially was better. And before I could imagine it, he'd shoot through the first line, was into my second line, and like a cheeky charge away from killing my sorcerer. That's how bad it went. So
dang! Well, how did you bring it back in the end?
Well, my sorcerer almost died, so I'm like, well, dude, you got to do it. So, and he was very clumped up. So I'm like, okay, here we go. Activate, go in the middle of his massive troops, play breath. And I don't think it went off right away. I think like I had a failed attempt, but like I think the second attempt it went off, really beat him up hard. You're rolling 3 dice, and on 4, 5s, and 6s, you're causing casualties. Then I did again. I'm just maxing this out because he's kind of jammed in there, and he's killing me in hand to hand, and I'm trying to keep up without fighting him in my turn too much. So I send in the sorcerer one more time. I roll like only like I don't get a rare, which you really need. And I picked up 3 dice, and I was like, well, this isn't going to work. I need 6s to cause casualties. And I rolled 5 times, and each time I got a 6. And that kind of put it in the bag for me. That was like, I was stunned. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't normally happen, but I'll take it.
Awesome. Otherworld sneaking it out.
The
round
breath.
2.
Bad breath.
Bad breath. Look out for that flying sorcerer. It's interesting because that's what Ducat in our Otherworld faction review.
Okay.
You know, so I never really ran that, but he swore by that. So
interesting.
Yeah, check out the faction review. Seems to you guys are aligned in this strategy of the breath, which makes sense because there's not too much shooting. You know, there's a couple tricks up your sleeve, but just finishing things off with some breath makes sense. So coming into round 3, how are you feeling here?
So
was that a big win? Did you feel like you were?
The first one was barely a win. The second one, once that second breath went off, like the pieces started to fall apart, and I like was racking up max points on the objectives. I ended the game with the objectives, and I was able to kind of punch and clean up. So I took it from like a nail biter to like all of a sudden it kind of explodes. I get a big win. So I was like, okay, I've got a close one. I have a big win. I'm like, so maybe if I really kill a lot of stuff in the next one, I was hoping to get like Slaughter King. I'm like, I would be happy to get Slaughter King.
All right. Well, who were you matched up with round 3?
Well, so I had heard a warning about this build, and help me with the name. It's a little long.
I think it was James.
James. So sorry. Yeah, James. I mean, it's a. God, is it the name? It's a legendary build, and it's so weird. It's in the.
So the name of
his build.
It's like from the depths.
Yes, that's right.
So the player actually gave me a card, James Koss.
Yep. So he came up with a build that is like nothing I've ever seen. And I think I thumbed through that book and I saw that, under that warband, the legendary warband. I just shrugged. I didn't really understand it.
So this is the legendary warband for Otherworld. So it's Otherworld versus Otherworld.
Right.
On the topish tables. You guys had a pretty good lead over everybody else, actually. It was me and Charles below you, but we were 5 or 10 behind. So,
of course.
As your guys.
I was going to say talent rises to the top.
Oh, yeah. So this warband, to refresh, legendary. Like you said, I've glossed over it, but there's a couple key points in there. So you have no warlord.
Right, warlord.
There's like a pretty big disadvantage. You can't take flying warriors.
Right.
You can't take heavy weapon warriors.
Right.
You're mostly just taking warriors. You can take some monsters. You can't take Hearthguard. You can never take Levy, so like you're basically just locked into warriors. But at the start of the turn or the end of the turn.
Start of each turn.
At the start of each of your turns, every one of your eliminated warrior units, you'd roll a dice. On a 6, they would come back.
Come back. You don't get points.
Yes,
They
it
don't get
specifically
any
says they
points.
no longer count as eliminated. So it's like resurrection.
Right.
You don't get those points, and they come on from like a table, any table
Yes.
edge, so you could kind of come in from behind.
Maybe not my back line. He did come in from the
Okay,
side, but still
yeah.
comes in from the
Up
side.
there,
That ain't
go
great.
look in. Yeah, so he could take some hunters, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So that's kind of a way to boost your abilities. I mean, they could use like regular battle board abilities, right? Some of those legendary armies are so weird. Okay, so you're thinking like, okay, whatever. How many times are you going to roll a 6?
Right.
But when you think about that, and you think of like 8 or 12 pack units or something like that, your
He
standard
had 'em
stuff.
even
So
smaller.
what was he doing?
Oh, good Lord. This is where, like, first of all, I've been warned, like, what a difficult build it was. A buddy of mine was like, this is ridiculous. So I'm like, oh, great. I get to see, whatever this is. 3 monsters come out, 2 with wings, 1 on foot. So he's the, okay, come on, not the Titan, but the other one. And so that's 3 heavy
3
hitters.
behemoths, yeah.
And then he puts the rest of his warrior units in 4 packs. And you're like, now what the hell is this?
So
How can this work?
3 points of monsters, and then 5 points worth, so 40 warriors. So just as
Yep.
many warriors as you have.
Yep.
But if he's doing 8 packs or a 4 pack, that's like what 10 units of 4.
Yeah,
That's
it's insane.
Okay.
And half of them are hunters. That's important.
okay.
Half are
Yeah,
hunters.
so I think you're capped too. with
right.
the hunters.
Exactly, 1 for 1.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what?
So as he's putting it on the table, like, I am just flummoxed. Like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, my other world, the way I run them is I'm using big beefy units of 10 warriors. So 40 and 10, 4 10 packs generally. I didn't do any of the like 4 pack to be a dice generator. I'm just going for big units.
Mm-hmm.
So I did go with 2 shield and spear, and then kind of like a little second level the heavy weapon guys, because that's the figures I had.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was putting my units on the table, I'm like, do I break my units
You just
down
match
to 4
up, yeah.
packs? And I was just stuck. I was like, what is he doing here? Like, how does
Yeah.
this work? I couldn't
So
quite
let's
see it.
Think about it. So he just rushes in hard, rushes in
Yes.
early, get your guys killed as soon as
Yes.
possible. And after 4 or 5 units are eliminated, I mean, you're going to kill stuff. You
Yep.
don't even pop saga abilities with your hunters. So now you're rolling 3 or 4 dice, you're going to get a 6,
Yes.
on average,
Yes, you
probably
will.
per turn. So just get them killed as soon as possible and just start rolling those dice. And it sounded like, I was kind of asking his opponents, he's pretty hot first game. Second game, he wasn't so hot, but, if you get killed on turn 2, you've got 5 chances to roll
Yes.
a 6, and, it's 8 or 9 units, like, they're just going to keep coming back, and they no longer count as eliminated, so those points will come back. So it's just kind of trade fast and furious.
Yep.
And so, I was kind of thinking, I knew he was out there too, the way to try to face that then is kind of just don't engage early. Just if you're going to kill Steph, kill on turns 4 or 5, or so he has 1 chance to resurrect him, and that's
Right,
it.
right.
And kind of don't, try not to play his game. But I'm sure when the rubber hits the road, it's maybe not so easy to think about that. So
It's true.
how did it go? How was it looking at like turn 2?
So
example?
luckily I was player 2, which is very important and to like how the game
Okay.
ended up.
Did you bid for player 2?
We both bid 0, so it was a roll off. So
yeah, it's
he
kind
went
of tough,
first.
that king of the hill, whether
Right,
you want to be
right.
first or second.
And so no one wants to quite get up there, so he opens with just 3 dice. So I'm like, okay, nothing too terrible happens.
yeah, nothing.
But I'm looking, and I know the hunters charge 12. I know they're going to be throwing 8 dice. And I don't know, mistake or not, it's what I did, because the whole battle's fought on the hill. I'm almost like all my units are in column, big beefy columns.
Okay.
And as I'm looking at my own deployment, I'm like, well, this is awesome. If I pop, I will literally get almost all my figures fatigued. So I'm starting to sweat. I'm like, should I have spread them out? Like, you're just questioning
Does
yourself.
he notice that?
Yeah, does he
What's he-
notice? And is he going to get my wizard? So I was very nervous, but turn 2, he finally reveals the secret. He rolls all his dice. He has max dice, and he puts them all into activations.
Okay.
No board. He's like, I am going to kill you with Raw Saga. Something
That's
you're
right,
pretty familiar
Raw
with.
Saga in it. I love it.
So
yeah.
I took it on the chin, like units. There was one unit that had 3 fatigues, like waves, just waves that are coming in. And like he's being very cagey with the monsters. I knew early on, I'm like, if I drop a monster, he ain't coming back. But everything else, hunters and the warriors all can come back. So it's like,
too,
yeah, right?
Yeah.
So he's being very cagey, but the monsters are like stepping on the hill, and I don't really want to jump out and get one, because if I do, if I'm on the edge of the hill, he's got to come to me. Maybe even sometimes get a fatigue if he had to. He'd come in with a fatigue.
Double, yeah.
And I did spot, like what you're saying, which is I always close ranks. If I had a defensive buff, I put it up on first wave.
The Peter the Hermit's pilgrims coming in.
Right, just to mess me up. And I just, like, in my turn, I just kept having to feed rests in, because, like, got to get that fatigue off my guys to keep the game moving.
Okay. So I did pop over there and a little kind of halfway through, and I did see it looked like the situation had changed a little bit with some sorceress intervention.
Right.
Would you say, Monty?
Yes, absolutely. So after his turn 2, on all those dice with all those units, my mind is just spinning. I'm like, I'm just going to drown under the sea. The wave of attacks are right.
Yeah,
and I also was thinking,
depths.
I could kind of tell, like, these little crappy packs are going to overwhelm me, and then the monsters probably will mop up. Like, once I beat up the monsters, are going to do the last work. So I'm like, this is no time to not take risks or play conservative Saga. So I took my magic dice, I maxed it out. I sent my sorcerer 12 inches on a flight, landed it in the face of his army, like nicely positioned so I could get max units. I picked 4 because that's the most I can do. I put it on breath, and thank goodness I rolled a rare, because that's the number you need. You need a rare, so I have a rare. I'm on the rare. Roll a 10. My sorcerer almost forgets the spell, but I just pop like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1.
So these are all the 4
Yes,
packs.
the 4
are now
packs,
3
all
packs,
of them.
and the Saga Dice generation crumbles to ashes in his mouth.
Right. So he did drop pretty quickly, from, I think, like from 8 to 7, but it was a big drop. He had like a lot of margin, and I knew in my heart, I'm like, okay, next turn, I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And he knew what I was doing, and luckily, like, I've learned this playing you, Rodge, I tucked my wizard in, because he has 2 creatures that can fly. I'm like, I'm not going to leave any room so we can poach this guy, because it's game over if I don't have breath. So my third turn, I did the same thing. I got lucky, 4 dice, hit another rare, but this time my sorcerer forgot breath. So I'm like, okay, done. Crutch gone. Crutch play's gone. I'm gonna have to win it the traditional way. But I at first dropped him to like 4 dice, because all of these units were now smoked down.
7 to 4. And then, I walked over, and we just had all these units in his backfield, kind of just little 3 packs.
Yep.
Warriors. I'm like, oh, those are warriors. Oh, my guy. At that point, it's not like he kind of knew the jig was up, and that
he did, but he didn't give up.
Bested,
Relentless.
but still push him forward with the dice you got.
Yep.
The machine had a couple poles stuck in the spokes of the wheel, but Monty kept it going. So it was King of the Hill too. So you kind of had to come forward, and contest and take it,
right?
So maybe that worked for him. So how did it end up in the end?
So that turn 2, turn 3, I get the advantage. He's now like trying to get his dice back by burning up his broken units and just putting activations to wildly throw in. I'm closing ranks. I'm hoping I don't hit them, right?
Yeah.
But he gets some dead guys. He does bring a guy back, so now he's back. He falls to 3 for a minute, comes back to 4, but I'm still... And now at some point he's got to send the monsters. He's got 3 of them. I've never been able to lay a finger on him, because he's being very sly with them, and now all his units are just kind of a hot mess. They're burned up. The dice are gone, so he's like, got to make the big plays. He made some good plays to kind of pull it back, but it was turn 5. There's about 10 minutes left in the game, and he kind of pressed hard to do that. And so I knew there was like 10 minutes left in the game, so I'm the final player. It's turn 2, so now I can throw myself. Now I'm just raw Saga. Every unit that can, don't care if you have a fatigue, charge, go in, kill that 1 pack, kill that 2 pack. I dropped 2 monsters, lots of little 1 and 2 and 3 pack units, and all of a sudden it went from like kind of a knife's edge to a major. Yeah, it was a major victory.
All right, man.
I was sweating.
What an interesting game to end. I never had an experience.
Never have I ever.
Like that. Like that. So, yeah, cool. It was pretty cool to see, you know, took a list that, you know, no one ever took a second glance at.
No
and,
one.
You know, I thought about it
out.
before and, you know, thought it through. And, yeah, put you to your paces here.
Oh, I was sweating.
So, yeah, you end up, there was some sports and paint stuff here, so you're adequate in those regards, Monty. So
I liked adequate.
you had quite a bit of a margin, actually, at the end there, so maybe you could have not done quite so well in the last one, still pulled it out.
You have no idea. You really don't.
Yeah,
in
you
the
don't.
moment, I actually was just thinking, I want to kill, and I told him, like, because I know it's not fun, but I'm like, dude, it's my third win. I know this isn't fun, but I kind of need to mop up because if I get enough kills, maybe I'll be Slaughter King. And I was really excited about that.
So,
maybe.
One better than the Slaughter King, the King of Magic. Yeah,
Go
congratulations
figure.
again, buddy. Good to see you do it with the other world. You know,
thank you and Eric for putting
Long-time
on the
fan.
show and all the work. This is so much work, and it's just fantastic.
All right. Yeah. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat today, and we'll get back to the evening festivities.
Yes.
And check you folks later.
Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye. All right.
Saga!
If you'd like to see more Saga content, consider joining the Heathen Army over on Patreon or popping on down to the Saga Thursday Discord server. Links below. Thanks, guys.